Our son Anthony is 19 right now. He's a sophomore in college, and he has a twin brother, Doug, who does not seem to have it. Anthony's always had nosebleeds, always out of the blue, waking up in the morning with it all over his pillow, completely covered. And you mention it to the doctor, and they're just, keep his nose moist, and he should be fine. When he was a sophomore in high school, the day after Thanksgiving, he started complaining about a headache, and it went on for a couple weeks. We went to the doctor. Doctor first thought it might be viral meningitis. Went to the hospital. It wasn't that. They did blood work. Everything's fine. We ended up going to the doctor 3 times and to the emergency room 3 times.
He was coming down with that headache was more of a migraine.
Where he couldn't eat, he was throwing up whatever he ate. He couldn't walk. He was starting to not be able to see correctly.
Except
Apples, that's the only thing he could eat. It was really weird. But after 3 weeks, he just looked like walking death, and we were extremely concerned. Took him back to emergency, and I more or less had a meltdown and insisted that they do a CAT scan or we weren't leaving the hospital. And when they got the results, they were not sure.
They gave him Demerol. They gave him Demerol for the pain because of the migraine that he was having. And the Demerol should have gotten rid of the whole pain, but it didn't. The doctor had asked him, okay, so how's the pain in your head? And he says, well, the front part of my head, I don't feel anything anymore. He says, but the back, I still do.
Yeah.
And at that point, he said there was something wrong because I should have nailed everything.
Yeah. So they did the CAT scan, and they came out and told us that they showed us the pictures, and they weren't sure if he had an aneurysm, an embolism, a tumor, an abscess. They weren't sure what was going on. And we were at Troy Beaumont, and they took him over to Royal Oak. And that was about 2 in the morning, and they determined that it was a brain abscess, and it was taking up a quarter of his brain area. It was about 120 cc's of infection in his brain, and they had to go in and try and siphon it out without bursting the membrane, because then the infection would go throughout his entire brain. They ended up having to go in 3 different times over the course of 3 weeks to get it all out. They found an abscess in his liver, and so they're trying to figure out where all this is coming from. And they finally found 2 AVMs in his lung, and that he was playing football, and they think he probably smacked his head. It could have been a little clot that grabbed some bacteria and caused the abscesses. So the lasting effects from the surgeries is that because where they had to go in right back here 3 times, he's lost all the vision in both eyes.
It split the optic nerve.
From the center to the right. They told us that he'd probably never be able to drive, which he does, and he does very well. He's adjusted, his neurosurgeon said that he's adjusted so well that if it was someone my age losing that kind of vision, it would be debilitating. But, I mean, for a long time, he'd smack into cupboard doors if they were open, and we had to be very careful because you'd leave one open and smack.
He wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
From that right side, he couldn't see anything like that.
But he's 5'11", and he came out of the hospital weighing about 122 pounds.
Wow.
With a PICC line for about 3 or 4 months in his arm. And baseball is his life. And he still went to practice not being able to use his arm and looking just like a skeleton. But he's amazing to us because he worked very hard, built himself back up. I mean, he couldn't stand by himself to use the facilities for a while. But that summer, as I was telling you, and I've shared this with you, we got the opportunity to go down to Tennessee to watch him. This is where I get emotional. But it's happy emotion. We got to watch him pitch in the Little League World Series. So that was
Wow.
a huge treat.
But that's the drive that he had.
Yeah. He hasn't had any episodes since then, other than the nosebleeds all the time. Right now he's in better shape than he's ever been, and he's on the